Alright, as promised at the end of the last video, I will be doing an analysis slash summary of the Five Nights at Freddy's novels, starting with The Silver Eyes. I like The Silver Eyes quite a bit. It's probably my favorite book in the series, and I just finished reading it the other day, but I guess I'm gonna have to reread it in order to get all of the lore. Alright, here we go. Chapter 1. We open in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where our main character, Charlie Emily, though her last name is revealed in a later book, is hiding behind arcade cabinets from Foxy. Then it abruptly cuts to her driving into the town of Hurricane, Utah. It establishes that she is there for a scholarship in the name of her childhood friend, Michael Brooks, who went missing 10 years ago in 1985 at Freddy's. But before that, she's going to meet her friends at a diner. While she's driving, she notices a sign advertising the summer's blockbuster hit, probably Batman Forever or Waterworld. Maybe even Die Hard 3. Die Hard 3 is awesome. Batman Forever and Waterworld, not so much. She decides that since she has some time to kill, she might as well go look at her childhood house. Okay, quick pause. She's supposed to be 17 in this book. Why on earth is she just going to Utah by herself? Like, what the heck? Her Aunt Jen is, said to teach her to rely on herself. But, like, why on earth would you let a literal child drive to a town that she hasn't been to in 10 years by herself? But I suppose I should not question the genius of Scotty Cawthon. She gets to her childhood home, only to reiterate how it's been 10 years since she had been there. She notes how the house looks slightly dilapidated. She goes inside and realizes that the house was too big for the furniture. Now, I think that if this book had taken place today, she'd have no problem, because for some reason, modern interior design seems to really like furniture being really far apart. Like, I don't want to have to strain my eyes to see the television. Okay, I won't complain about home design anymore. I have a dang folding table in my bedroom instead of a desk. She remembers how the last time she was there, her Aunt Jen told her to pack up and leave, and she was very sad because she couldn't put all her stuff in her suitcase. She then recalls her father, quote, scooping her up into his arms. Mike parallel? She then reminisces on the robots her father made her to keep her company as a little child. There was this little purple rabbit guy called Theodore, Stanley the unicorn, and a little girl doll called Ella that lived in one of Charlie's closets. Now, remember that Charlie has multiple closets. That becomes very important in Book 3, but I won't spoil. She recalls the time her friend John came over and asked her why on earth she had 3 closets. She just said, "'Cause that's how many there are." And somehow that was a good enough answer for 7-year-old John. She notes how she had the closets by how old she was. She says she never grew into her big girl closet because she moved away. She goes into her father's old workshop and remembers how there was this creepy endoskeleton guy with silver eyes. It had silver eyes. This guy will become important later. Keep him in your back pocket. Charlie then decides to grab her keys and get the heck out of there because she gets very spooked by the silver eyes guy. She drives away and pulls over like a mile later. I'm pretty sure it's meant that she's having a panic attack like Tony Soprano. But I don't really know. She then turns her car back on and tunes into a radio station of a guy yelling, and this seems to snap her back into reality. She gets to the restaurant that she was going to in the first place before doing all that reminiscing stuff. She sees Jessica, who will eventually become her best friend in the sequels, Carlton, who is the comic relief and will eventually become the main character in the 3rd book, dumb I know, and Sean, who she says was her childhood crush. She notes how he gave her cookies from his Transformers lunchbox in kindergarten. This is an oversight. Charlie's birthday is established to be May 13th. The book is established to take place in summer of 1995 for the 10th anniversary of the missing children incident. Charlie is 17 when the events of the book takes place. Now, if Charlie was born on the 13th of May in 1978, later retconned, but I'm talking about the Silver Eyes only, it would be physically impossible for John to have a Transformers lunchbox. They'd be in kindergarten from 1983 to 84. Now, the school year usually ends in late May or June. Transformers came out in November of 1984, so how would John have a lunchbox of a television show that wouldn't release for a couple months? Answer: John is a time traveler sent from the ball pit from Fazbear Frights. Boom, just solved FNaF. Okay, that was absurd. Back to talking about Book. She also remembers how John almost kissed her 2 years later. So it would have to be 1985 because that's when the MCI happened and everyone moved away. Charlie sits down at the diner with her friends, and they talk about how they all moved to different places around the country, but Carlton stayed in Hurricane because he's just built different, and his dad is police chief. Jessica tells Charlie that the other folks in their friend group will arrive the next day, and she booked a motel for her, Charlie, and Marla, who I will talk about in Chapter 3. Charlie says that she's very intimidated by Jessica for some reason and considers staying at her childhood home. She then realizes that that place is dilapidated and filled with creepy robots, and she decides she'll just go with Jessica. The book then remembers that they're at a restaurant, and Charlie orders scrambled eggs and toast. Very good choice. They talk about how they're going to the scholarship thingy in the morrow, and Charlie asks John if he still writes stories like he did when he was a wee lad. He says he still does, and one of his stories got published in a magazine. After they receive their food, John asks whatever happened to Freddy's, and Carlton says how they built over it, but he doesn't know what they built because he never goes over there. Charlie says that she's going to go outside to go smoke, even though she doesn't smoke. Good for her. She goes to her car and gets very sad about Fazbear's. John, being the gentleman that he is, brings her the jacket that she left inside the restaurant. Charlie says that she knew that Fazbear's was going to come up, but she wasn't prepared to discuss it. John says uh-oh like a B-1 battle droid when Carlton and Jessica come outside with them. They then discuss jolly memories of Freddy's and how they all miss it when they were wee children. Carlton says that Jessica is insane for talking to the robots as a child, and they keep yapping, and Charlie says that Freddy was yellow, but everybody else knows that Freddy's brown. Foreshadowing. Charlie asks again if Carlton doesn't know what happened to Freddy's. He says that he doesn't, and the gang decides that they're gonna go investigate like Scooby-Doo. Chapter 2. The gang drive to the remains of Freddy's. Charlie and Jessica in one car, and John and Carlton in the other. John asks if anyone has a flashlight, and Charlie gets one from out of her trunk. The gang starts walking to the building, and they see that they started construction on it but never finished. The gang debates for a minute and then decides to go inside the building like a bunch of trespassing little jerks. They go in through a window and they find themselves in what looked like a mall. They start yapping about how it looks like a lost city until they hear someone else in the mall. They consider leaving, but then they realize that the architecture looks like the mall was built around something. They think that Freddy's might still be in there and they decide to go inside. They see that everything looks exactly the same as it did in 1985. They look at the animatronics and there's way too much imagery and it's very long and boring, especially for folks with teeny tiny attention spans like me. Charlie goes over to her dad's office. Charlie reminisces about hanging out in there and playing and whatnot. Then she goes back in the showroom and the gang all look at the merry-go-round and the arcade cabinets. Carlton talks about how there's another pizza joint that he frequents, but it's not as good as Freddy's. Charlie then remembers how when John called her by her full name, Charlotte, and teased her when they were little kids. They then go check out the kitchen and they go to see Pirate's Cove and note how it's still out of order all these years later, which makes sense because the building hasn't been open since 1985, but I guess they don't understand that. John hears some sort of music, but the rest of the gang doesn't. Charlie notices how John and Jessica are breathing and it has a lot of imagery. She says John's breathing is very slow and deliberate, but Jessica's is quick and nervous. Jessica starts to open Pirate's Cove, and there's very much imagery as it describes how Charlie was making a fist so tight she could feel her fingernails digging into her hands. That sounds very painful. Yeah. They hear a loud crash and decide to boogie on out of there. They run away and say it was very fun, but also very scary. And Charlie and Jessica drive back to their motel. Charlie and Jessica yap for a while, and it's very boring and drawn out. Jessica yaps about this dude called Donnie. She says that he was a very nice fellow, but he wrote very stupid poems, so Jessica abandoned him like a jerk. Charlie says that that was very mean, and they keep talking and talking and talking, and it's so freaking boring, and I want them to get back to Fazbear, and not this freaking boring dialogue. They yap some more about their dead friend Michael and the scholarship thingy the next day, and I just want this bit to end. I'm tired of this. Scott, you're a genius, but you and Kira cannot keep my attention. While reading this, I feel like I'm about to fall asleep, and it's only 9 p.m. They talk and talk and talk and talk, and then they go to sleep. Well, that was a ride. We saw old robots, dilapidated houses, dilapidated malls, and talking and talking and talking and talking some more. These chapters were really just about setting up the book, and it gets more interesting later. But that's all the time we have for this week, kids. Tune in next week, same FNaF time, same FNaF channel.